I believe it started out with a few bad apples that made some poor judgments and mistakes, and then more people tried to come in and cover those up to not damage their reputation, which only compounded the problem before, right? So again, just in common sense, if you do something wrong, take responsibility for it. I messed up, I made a mistake, let me fix it. That was not what happened here. What happened here was they made some mistakes, and then they doubled down, and then they tripled down and said, we didn't make any mistakes. And from that aspect of it, that is where the government overreach and that type of the spirit of the attitude that we're the FCC. We don't make mistakes like this. These guys are the bad guys. We're the good guys. So you should believe us and nothing more.
This content is brought to you by BitGo, which is one of the top crypto custodians in the crypto industry. BitGo works with many big companies and brands, such as Pantera Capital, Bitstamp, and Bitcoin IRA. Nike also selected BitGo to power its wallets for its NFTs. And BitGo has many great services, such as hot wallets, custodial wallets, self-managed cold wallets, and NFT wallets. Many institutions trust BitGo with its top-level security and incredible services, such as being able to deploy your capital while it's in custody, which includes lending, borrowing, trading, staking, DeFi access, and more. If you'd like to learn more about BitGo, please visit bitgo.com, link in the description. Welcome to the Thinking Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Tony Edward, and with me today is Schad Brannon, who's the co-founder at DebtBox, and Alex Ray, who is the Chief Security Officer at DebtBox. Gentlemen, great to have you both on.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate you having us.
Thanks, Tony.
Guys, I'm so excited to speak with you. And I know that the actual topic is not something to be excited about, but I am excited that you got this victory against the SEC. I know it was an arduous, crazy process for you guys and the attack from the SEC. And we saw all the results of the judge and what they had to say and so forth. But before we get there, I want folks to get to know you guys a bit better. Schad, maybe you can kick us off with your professional background, and then we'll move to Alex.
Yeah, thanks. I'm originally from Chicago. I was born there. I was raised in Los Angeles, California, and my stepfather lives in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. So I split my time between Los Angeles and Canada growing up. But I still hail from Los Angeles, and I live now in the UAE in Abu Dhabi. And I also spend quite a bit of time on the African continent in Ghana, West Africa. So I've got a couple places of residence, I guess, at this point. But as we'll get on in this interview podcast, we'll chat about kind of the reason why we came to the UAE, based on just our personal experience. And we were originally formed in the state of Wyoming, which is probably the most, crypto-friendly state in the United States, and one of the most progressive. But so I'm from the U.S. I'm a resident of the UAE, and I spend quite a bit of time going to different locations around the world to basically support our digital platform, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later in this podcast.
And what was like your first encounter with Bitcoin, and what was your aha moment?
So this is an interesting, a little bit of an interesting story. I'll try to make it, quick. So I was fortunate enough to get my professional start at the age of 19. I went to work for Peter Morton, the owner and the founder of the Hard Rock Cafe and Hotels. And he was a co-founder. And so I, at a very early age, got, into my professional career. And so, not to date myself, but I, in my early to mid 20s, went through the .com bubble, if you will. And so, one of my duties at Hard Rock was I was, director of marketing, special events, and I was also Peter's executive assistant for a dozen years. So I had quite a few roles at that institution, but, it gave me a very unique education in business and living through the dot-com, era was, a big advantage, I think, going into what we now call Web3. And, so my first experience with Bitcoin wasn't until about 2014, when we were working on a project in the state of Nevada, building a bank. Actually, it was actually a thrift, which is a type of bank, but it was a unique scenario, and we were building that for a number of different reasons. But essentially, what it was a mineral, a precious metals backed bank, and its functionality. And I worked with the banking commissioner there for 4 years to create this bullion thrift. And unfortunately, it didn't end up ever launching. We got right to the goal line, but back in 2014, we were working on our own digital currency. Now, I was introduced to Bitcoin right around that time, and my reading the infamous 9-page Satoshi white paper was an eye opener for sure. For me personally, I wasn't as excited about Bitcoin as I was about the underlying technology that allowed it to function, which was widely known now as the blockchain. And going back to my Hard Rock days, one of my responsibilities was I was doing some business development and assessing .com companies for personal investments for some of the executives at Hard Rock. And I read a lot of business plans. I read a lot of proposals that needed seed money, angel round funding. And one of the big successes that we had there was I came across this business plan, which if I'm being honest, I read probably 4 times cover to cover, and probably could only grasp about 65% of exactly what these guys were saying. But the one thing I did realize was that if I was understanding what I was reading, that this was going to change the internet, for the better. And that company ended up turning out to be Akamai Technologies, which is still around today, and which is now basically defined as cloud computing and internet, efficiencies. And their technology was allowing large amounts of information to go from one location to another through a fairly technical process. But if you go back, and anybody that watches your podcast or understands what I'm saying, I mean, we're going back to dial-up, modems, and one of the innovations of the internet, which became quite clogged in the very beginning, was because that technology at the time was so new and was so groundbreaking that really the amount of information that was trying to be disseminated across the internet, the technology just wasn't there. So, like anything in life and in business, challenges will breed innovation, and so a lot of really smart folks were working on these problems, and Akamai happened to be one of them, which was a huge success. And I'd like to think that I played a small role in advocating for that company in their angel round, which Peter and some of his close associates were responsible for. That company is still around to date, and they're still thriving. And they had I believe they had a big role. So what that unique education and experience taught me was that when the blockchain was introduced and I started to really do deep dive into it, working on this, I was very interested in digital currency. I was very interested in a tangibly backed, fractional banking entity. And so you can kind of see the seeds being laid here for what's now in this, distributed ledger technology world, or Web3, that we're in. There were some small little inklings of where things were going and what the future was going to hold. So when I became familiar with blockchain and could finally understand it, I saw a lot of opportunity that was going to, basically not just change the internet, but change the world. And so I was mainly interested in the underlying technology, the blockchain, and what that could bring for, future advantages and opportunities for people that and frankly touching so many different industries, supply chain, investment opportunities, real world assets. And I really viewed it as access. I really viewed it as lowering the barrier of entry for certain opportunities. And again, when technology comes out, again, it's very much a organic thing, right? Somebody comes up with a new platform and new technology and puts it out there, and then people build on top of it and start to improve it, and it morphs and changes, and then it ends up in this very, kind of exciting utility type function. And that's kind of what I saw. So my first, and I wish I knew more about Bitcoin, but my brain at the time and from my experience steered me towards the blockchain. I wish I was, as smart as some of these other folks like Da Vinci, who were buying Bitcoin at, pennies and stockpiling, congratulations, just what foresight. So, but anyway, the reality of the matter was that the technology was there. I had to be fortunate enough to see some of the applications that I thought were possible. And so, but I knew, that it was gonna change the game. So since 2014, I've been a very close, watcher, and I've educated myself in anything I can get to read about it and the applications, and saw it kind of, evolving right in front of my eyes. But I definitely saw the correlation between the trajectory of the .com bubble, as it's known, to this crypto movement that started even before 2014, but that really started gaining some traction in the mid 2010s. So and then here we are now at 2024, and it's bigger and more opportunistic than I think anybody could have imagined. So it's a really exciting time for technology and for people and innovators and entrepreneurs. So it's a very exciting thing.
For sure. I appreciate your background on that. All right, Alex, if you can, tell us a bit about yourself and your background and first encounter with crypto.
Yeah. Similar to Schad, when I read the Satoshi white paper, I was actually already familiar with blockchain as a distributed ledger technology. So seeing a digital currency over the top of it, Chris Stornetta, I think a lot of people, I used to talk a lot about this, that Satoshi was the inventor of it. It wasn't. It was developed in the 90s. I come from a technology background, so I got it pretty quickly in terms of the utility of blockchain. Like Schad, I wish I had the foresight to buy, but it was more the technology. We're going back to probably 2011, 2012, when I really kind of started to see that this is going to take off. And again, that was in more the utility of a distributed ledger than a digital currency. My background, I was one of the founders of the Nordic IT Association. So that we started in 2011. So any kind of technology that increased data security, integrity, were kind of key aspects for us as a non-profit body. I, being early in it, saw, like any new technology, vulnerabilities, ways to improve it, and that's really what piqued my interest. I was a bit more of an advocate of turning perhaps blockchain more into data provenance and integrity and security than I was about currency, to be frank.
Sure.
And we were doing a lot in terms of essentially kind of trying to evangelize blockchain very early into enterprise, and that was our kind of one of our key initiatives in Nordic IT. I come from a security background. So again, very early on, we're talking probably 13, 14, just before the Ethereum ICO wave. I had already started educating myself in terms of some of the security pitfalls, some of the vulnerabilities that were inevitable in a new technology where you've got lots of value. So I started a very early mover in auditing, Blue Swarm, and kind of, surrounded myself with skilled security practitioners trying to safeguard, a technology that was growing in momentum very, very quickly. And it's kind of, I gotta say, I kind of felt a bit like someone on the moon when I was saying, this is DeFi, good code is secure code. And when we started implementing EVM smart contracts, it became even more, obvious to me as a security individual what we're going to be facing. And of course, don't get me started on some of the horrific hacks we've seen in that space. That for me was obvious. And it's still, even now, I feel we've only kind of just reached this more proactive paradigm when it comes to decentralized autonomous contracts. If they're not secure, we're in trouble. And obviously being immutable, they need to be right from the get-go. So that's really, I'd say, was my main interest in the industry. I spent a lot of time advising some companies, but didn't want to touch it really until now, partly because of the lack of regulation, the lack of, any kind of certainty. I kind of shied away from doing anything myself and just tried to kind of evangelize more secure technology and improve, what we already had. So that was my sort of main thrust, I guess, into the industry. And yeah, still to this day, I think we need to be far more proactive, switch our reactive thinking and paradigm into more of a proactive stance when it comes to security, because ultimately, yeah, you lose it, you're finished. So that was my trajectory, Tony, into the industry. And yeah, I started working with John McAfee in 2015. Did a lot of work with him in security, which also obviously kind of pushed me quite even further into that space. And I remember the early days. I don't see a lot of projects still, kind of the .com that Schad mentioned. There's a lot of money went in and very little came out. So I think, again, that wave being probably a little bit younger, but going through it, in my 20s, I saw it happen and wished I was older and more skilled and could have been a part of it. So I also wanted to jump on that wave of innovation, and got excited about where it could go. And here we are today.
Tony, I'll just tag on to the back of what Alex said. I had a front row seat for some, very wealthy, people to contribute to the .com evolution and watch them get extremely more wealthy from that opportunity. And I was in my early 20s, just starting out, and didn't, I didn't have money to invest in companies and do those things. But, I had a front row seat to seeing what that innovation would do in terms of, building wealth and creating, more value for the people that were involved on the ground floor, which, affected me in a great way. And again, it was frustrating because I wish I had money to invest then. I just was just starting out, so I didn't. But I watched a lot of people get very wealthy, picking the right horses. And so, when crypto, or whatever we define this thing as, this movement, this Web3 thing, I wasn't going to miss out on this one. I was like, okay, I'm older, I'm wiser, I've got some resources now, and I saw a lot of correlations between the two, and myself and several other folks out there that are of the same age that could make that connection. I think whenever I meet them, wherever I am in the world, and we have this chat, we all kind of smile at each other and say, we weren't going to miss this innovation train. We were going to make sure we had a seat on it. And again, because we knew we had a little bit of foresight into where this thing could go, and if it possibly went where a lot of those better thought through business plans that launched on the internet that actually survived, this was the chance. And I wasn't getting any younger, so I was quite motivated to try to jump in with both feet and figure this out and figure out where my place in this Web3 world was. And so that's kind of how we arrived at the DebtBox and how that came about.
So yeah, tell us a bit more about that. For the audience who's watching and listening, who may not have heard or know of what DebtBox is, tell us about DebtBox and how you guys came up with the idea to start it.
So even going back to 2014, when I was talking about building this metals-backed bank in Nevada that unfortunately never got to the finish line. Got very close, but for political reasons, it just never launched. But even looking at virtual currencies back then and understanding it, I really wanted to. I set out to try to create something for the normal everyday person, the little guy, as I call it, and I put myself in that category. I was a little guy, and I just thought, with all this innovation and technology, how could it be best applied? And having a little bit of a background in the development of natural resources, my stepfather's family owned an earth moving construction company in Canada. We moved a lot of earth, and we built roads. My stepfather was a civil engineer. I grew up on driving bulldozers and scrapers and heavy machinery, so I had some. My other co-founder, Roy Nelson, comes from third generation, mining and refining family. And so uniquely, we always knew that, look, if you can get into the development of natural resources, there's a lot of wealth there. It's an extremely high barrier of entry. That's why it's kind of been reserved for, the multinational companies of the world and the very high net worth, ultra high net worth. And we're talking about oil and gas field development. We're talking about mining. We're talking about the processing and refining of minerals into different products. So the kind of the origin story was, how could we take this this over 150 plus year industry, which is natural resource development, and marry it to this very exciting innovation of the blockchain. And so at its core, the token economics that we built were created as a commodity derivative. We believed that and we'll get into the regulation in a little bit, but we believe that if there was a way that we could kind of combine these two worlds, there would be a massive value lift and opportunity for those that could see what we were trying to build. And so even going out into the world and trying to convince, traditional, or what I call legacy, commodity producers, like oil and gas field operators and gold and silver miners and whatnot, it very quickly dawned on us that tokenizing their revenue streams was not something that they could really wrap their brain around. Even as simply as we could try to explain it, the opportunity just wasn't there, because it just had never been done. Nobody understood really kind of what the concept was, and so it really made itself quite clear to us that we are going to have to create some of these initial projects to then demonstrate how it can be tokenized. So again, the market and the industries just weren't mature enough to accept this connection that we were trying to build. So in a very small way, we started the process of going out and creating some of our own projects and trying to get those projects into a kind of like a proof of concept scenario so that we could then start to tokenize it and digitize it and then disseminate the wealth across a larger platform of people. And initially, we did that through what we thought was, something that was not a security. We paid Denton's law firm, a decent sum of money to check and make sure that we didn't meet the Howey test, which we were, repeatedly reassured that we were not distributing unregistered securities. By the way, Tony, I'm a 20-year licensed financial and insurance professional. So I grew up in a regulatory environment. So, and again, as Alex mentioned earlier, we were never running away from regulation. We were trying to run to it. And part of the trajectory of us leaving the United States and coming to the UAE was because we saw the regulatory framework or the regulatory regime that the lawmakers or the inadequacies of the lawmakers was just not happening. And then based on the FTX fiasco, which was, I believe, one of the changing points of the commission's and Chairman Gensler's agenda, was the pendulum was to swing the other way. And unfortunately, I don't know the man, but again, it just is common sense, right? When something like that happens on your watch, you tend to say, look, we now we need everybody. We need to know what everybody's doing, in our jurisdiction. And again, the offer was put out there, a couple times publicly. It was like, look, come in and register. We'll have this open door policy, or leave. And, we watched it. We watched it closely for a while, and we saw this open door policy kind of not really be what it was represented to be. There was a lot of people coming in, and then they were, if they were even granted a return phone call, or some of those people that came in and raised their hand and said, we'd like to register, they were then served with a Wells notice and said, we think you're breaking the law. But, the spirit in which that offer was made and the form in which it was executed on were completely two different things.
Yeah.
And again, I can't speak for, anybody at the SEC. I will say this, though. I do want to preface this before we get too much further down the road, that the SEC is a 90-year-plus storied institution. They've done a lot of very good things.
Yeah.
They were given the power by Congress to protect the United States investor and to make sure that people were following the rules. And there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, we've championed that. And again, I think that this industry has demonstrated that it just wants clarity. It just has been screaming for, please tell us what rules we need to follow, and we'll follow. But the open door policy that just didn't seem in its form to really be what the spirit of how it was presented was really not the case. And then secondarily, this enforcement or regulation by enforcement and the government overreach was a big turnoff to a lot of people. So frankly, we took door number two. We just said, look, there's so much uncertainty here. We don't know. Our lawyers at Denton's are telling us we're in the right, and so we're going to follow the legal counsel. But I just kept seeing it deteriorating and getting worse and more aggressive. So frankly, we made the executive decision, in May of, 2022 to pick up stakes and come to the UAE, because the UAE was, in our opinion, leading the world, which is, not normal. Normally, the US leads the world in these types of things, which is unfortunate. As an American, I am deeply, I'm deeply saddened by the fact that our country's turning into a digital desert. So we came to the real desert in the UAE, where they had a very robust regulatory regime already hammered out, and they were welcoming innovators with open arms. And I have to tell you, in the time from May of 2022 till today, it's been nothing but absolutely amazing. The support that we've gotten, the advice that we've gotten, the resources that have been offered to us have been nothing short of the way this should go and the way this should be. And not to, I mean, I understand, lawmaking in different countries takes its own time and way, but the innovation train left the station a while ago, and the US is still standing on the platform trying to figure out if they've got a ticket or not. And my hat's off to the people here in the UAE and the way that they run their country, because they saw an opportunity to say, look, we want to be the digital center of the universe. So if you want to come here and you want to set up shop, we'll make a lot of tools available to you. We'll make a lot of opportunities available to you. We want you to follow our rules, which is completely fair. And if you do, you'll thrive. And so that's really what we did. And again, I want to go back to this point because I don't want to come across. I think that the SEC, again, coming from a regulated environment, is a storied institution. There are a lot of really great folks out there doing a lot of really great work, plucking the bad actors out of the theater and, making them, applying the consequences that need to be done. Because if you're doing something wrong or you're doing something inappropriate, you should face the consequences. The unfortunate part about it is that I believe, and I think, and in my personal experience, there were some really good actors that got swept up in that, in those dragnets, and we were mistreated. Our constitutional rights were trampled all over. Some really bad and aggressive things happened. I will say, and I know I'm jumping around from, some of the questions that you want to ask, and we can drill down on those a little bit more detail, but I really think that, just in its current environment, what I've seen in the last just few months is that the United States and the lawmakers there are really trying to get their act together. There's some good legislation making its way through the process, and there's some really smart people now championing this more. And, one of the reasons why we're motivated to get on these podcasts and talk to the community is because, a couple things, contact your senators and please reach out to them and tell them what you want, because it works. As an individual and a normal, person, it's like, what can I do? How do I help? I don't have any influence. Well, that's not true. And I can tell you that through the people that we've talked to on Capitol Hill, they are hearing us. They are hearing the general public, and they know what the general public wants. And again, not to get, too far into the weeds on this, but, I think the Fit 21 legislation is probably the most comprehensive, smartest legislation I've seen. Nothing's perfect, but, all this time, and again, as I made that, kind of, illustration in your mind of the innovation train leaving the station and Uncle Sam standing there trying to figure out if he's got a ticket or he can still get on or what. And I believe the opportunity is still there, but the United States lawmakers need to speed up because they're getting left behind. And we as an institution and an organization made a decision to come to the UAE, and we have no plans to go anywhere else, because we believe that we are in the center of the digital universe here in the UAE, and we are being supported and motivated to continue to innovate and build and create this Web3 reality.
I appreciate that insight and overview, especially from your perspective as an entrepreneur and a builder, and how the United States has really fallen behind here. But to your point, there are some things in motion, but when there's no clarity, then you have an agency like the SEC kind of running amok and doing unlawful things, which we wouldn't expect them to. But here we find ourselves in this situation. So let's talk about, you guys are doing business, and then all of a sudden the SEC comes after you guys. What was their complaint? That you were selling unlicensed securities? And tell us about that process and how it led to, the courts and so forth.
Well, I'm just going to start off by telling you my experience and how this unraveled for us, because I think, I want to tell my story because I don't ever want this to happen again to anybody else. I think that there are a lot of folks at the SEC that feel that same way, that this was not handled properly. And again, nobody's perfect, but again, if we're not going to learn from our mistakes, then what was the point? So I see them making a real effort to correct these issues. And if we can be the example of anything, if there's any silver lining to this, I think that it's twofold. One, the little guy can win. And again, Judge Shelby, thank God that we had Judge Shelby as our judge, because him being the senior judicial figure in the second district, had a case thrust on him that was unprecedented. And I think he handled it with grace, and I think he was very fair. And that's, again, he's restored my faith in the judicial system in the United States, because for this 9-month nightmare, this forced hiatus that we were forced to go through, Tony, which caused so much pain and so much trauma to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people all over the world, because DebtBox was distributed in 150 plus countries, and we at one point were as strong as 300,000 wallet holders, and people were holding our software licenses, which are now NFTs, and our coin. When this went down and the way it went down, $500 million in market capitalization evaporated overnight, and that hurt a lot of really innocent people. And that's part of the reason why I feel like, and we feel like, we have to tell our story, because we want to learn from the mistakes of everyone involved, and do it better, so that this doesn't happen again. Because I think we can at least all agree on this: nobody's out trying to hurt anybody. Everybody wants to succeed, but in the way that this happened. So we were charged with, we were the primary defendants in the case, the company Digital Licensing Inc. out of Wyoming. And there were 4 DLI defendants: myself, Roy Nelson, Jason Anderson, and Jake Anderson. And then there were another 13 relief defendants that were named in it as well, some of which I've never met or don't know. So again, not that that's completely unheard of, but generally when you're getting sued by the federal government, you generally know who your co-defendants are. But we'll put that aside. So at the end of the day, I was in West Africa, actually executing a week to 10-day long seismic survey on an oil and gas field that we were developing for the platform. BGLD and NatG were two of our projects. And the way that DebtBox was designed was, we wanted to have something more tangible than just speculation like Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is, I don't think, has ever been in question about the fact that it is a commodity. It is a currency. It is a commodity. I know there's been some waffling on ETH, but I think that's now coming to an end with the approval of the spot, ETH fund, and Chairman Gensler, finally making up his mind, is it, isn't it? But it's now, where it's at. So this is good. This is progress. It could have been done a little smoother, but again, we're trailblazing here. Everyone is, to a certain extent, and the regulators are trying to figure out, how do we regulate this thing? What is this thing we're looking at? So again, I hope and pray that, the lawmakers can get together and can reach a conclusion, quickly. But back to your question, I was in the jungles of West Africa placing, servo nodes for this development of this field, and I got a hysterical call from my family saying that there were just 3 armed sheriffs at our front door wearing bulletproof vests, and 2 members of the Holland and Knight law firm that were self-appointed by the SEC as our receiver, and to find out that all of our assets, personal and business, had been frozen and taken from us and handed over to this law firm to now run our companies, was extremely traumatic. To this date, my 15-year-old child, who was 14 at the time, will not stay home alone in fear that, every knock on the door by every FedEx driver dropping something off or Amazon or something is again going to be a raid on our family home. And, I was fortunate enough to my family had the presence of mind when this happened at, 7 a.m. on a school day, trying to get ready to get out the door and go to school and work like every, normal, Americans do every day of their lives. Had the presence of mind to say, you're not entering the premises unless you can show me a warrant. Mm-hmm. So produce a search warrant and you can come in. But if you don't have a warrant, then you need to leave everything on the porch, and I'm shutting and locking the door, because after some aggressive interrogation, they realized that I was not on the premises. And wouldn't have mattered if I was or not, but at least my family had the peace of mind to state that and say. So for them, although it was traumatic, and the fact that this whole thing started to unravel as we were guilty until proven innocent, which is exactly the flip side of what our American judicial democracy is supposed to be. You're innocent until proven guilty, but it was, let me make no mistake, it was very much the other way. This was a weaponized situation that was pointed directly at us, and it came hard. And
so why do you think they came so aggressive against you guys, even lying to the courts, right? What do you think was behind that? And once again, I know you can't read minds, but I'm curious if you have any insights. Why did they go to this extent?
Well, I'll tell you, Tony, what initially happened was we were charged with fraud, and we were charged with the sale of unregistered securities. And so the sale of unregistered securities is still up in the air because, frankly, our lawmakers can't decide. The SEC and the CFTC cannot agree on what's a commodity and what's a security. That's number one.
Right.
But we'll put that aside for a second. It was the fraud charge that was the real hit, right? Because again, I walk in truth and righteousness every day, Tony. And again, when this happened to me, we had to make some really quick and hard decisions about what we were going to do. And lesser institutions or lesser people with our conviction would have folded. And a lot of them did. A lot of them folded. And there were some bad actors in that theater. There were some good actors in that theater. And they're all gone now. And some of the good guys that were innovating and doing really great things just weren't fortunate enough to have the resources or have the network that we did to be able to overcome this. And again, so that was the initial. And then and just to educate your audience is that the way this happened was there was an ex parte hearing behind closed doors with the commission, the receiver, and the judge. We had no knowledge that this was taking place. We weren't invited. This was something behind the scenes because they claimed that we were running away. We were taking all these assets and moving them offshore and trying to get out of the reach of the regulators and doing all these things. And it was only until we got a hold of the transcript, which we were legally allowed to see after the fact. So in this ex parte hearing, they presented their case to the judge. The judge listened. He even in that ex parte hearing made it very clear that he does not take these things lightly, these temporary restraining orders, because he knows that this flies in the face of constitutional rights for Americans. And he even said to them, I don't take this lightly. So, and there was some ambiguity in his mind. Again, I can't speak for him, but the transcript reads very clearly that he was not necessarily 100% satisfied that they met the threshold to be able to issue this TRO, this temporary restraining order. There was a break. There was a 5-minute break that was taken in this hearing. And when the commission came back, then they said some, salacious things. They said, and one of the main things was that we had closed down a large number of bank accounts in a short period of time, which just was frankly untrue. This was an untruth. And whether they were confused about it or they got their wires crossed, I don't know. But when you're talking to a federal judge you're supposed to talk in truth, and you're supposed to present the evidence that you've gathered. And if that evidence isn't accurate, then pardon me, then you're lying, or you're manufacturing something to perpetuate the goal that you're trying to do, which is convince this judge that there's a bunch of bad people out there stealing a bunch of other people's money and they're running away. And so on its face, that was really the starting point. What was more concerning was that when, and again, being put in this position, I'm not a lawyer, Tony. I'm not gonna say I've never been sued, because when you're in business and you're doing real business, there are disputes that happen and people sue each other all the time to get resolution to their disagreements. But I had to very quickly make a decision. And so one of the things that, information is the most valuable commodity in the world. And one of the things that I did was I meticulously read all those transcripts line by line. And I wanted to make sure that I understood what I was being accused of and faced with, and what was being said about what we did. And again, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand. And especially if you walk in truth and righteousness and you have that on your side, you have nothing to fear. So I kept reminding myself that every day, saying, I didn't do anything wrong. Why is this happening, this way? But I wasn't also going to be a victim either. I was going to stand up for what I knew was right. And so I went in and I dove in and I read everything. And then I said, this is not true. This is not true. This did not happen. So they either have to bring evidence to the contrary, or they need to be called out on this. And we need to start to defend ourselves in the position and just get this thing, at least to center, to say, look, if you think this is what we did, that's fine. Let's litigate it, right? But if you think that we're defrauding a large amount of the public, that's just not true. And again, I think what happened, I guess in just my opinion, right? I can't speak for, but people can go look at the rulings and look at the filings and see for themselves that the things that they were saying, they just could not believe that we as this smaller organization had orchestrated all these things. Like, that we were developing oil and gas fields on 2 continents, that we were building agricultural products in foreign countries, that we were doing. So in its face, it may have looked to them like, oh, this can't be true. No one does this amount of work. Nobody puts this amount of effort into anything. It must be false. So let's just get them. And so that's, I think, where it started. The more concerning part, Tony, was that when we started, when we were finally allowed, right, to start defending ourselves, we were able to quickly point out to the judge that, hey, there's some real inconsistencies here, and these things need to be looked at. So, whoa. And again, everything that we were asked to do, we complied with. They said, give us this, give us that. We gave them everything and said, look, we're here. We will go through all however many counts that they were facing us with. I can't remember. I've probably mentally blocked it out because it was just too traumatic. But the hill was high. I mean, it was north of 80 counts of this and that. And so I said, guys, get ready. We're gonna have to roll our sleeves up, and we're gonna have to go through these things one by one and prove them untrue. And we did that. We went through every single one of them and presented our lawyers, Morrison and Cohen, who, by the way, are the legal rock stars of the day, and all the credit goes to them, because I got to tell you, the 2 main, Jason Gottlieb and Richard Hong over there, are absolute legal rock stars. These guys know their stuff, and luckily they believed in us and they took our case, because other larger law firms, potentially wouldn't have done that, because when you're faced with that amount of accusations from a storied institution like the SEC, you must have done something wrong. You must be guilty. But, the reality, Tony, was that we weren't, and that we didn't. And that's the only thing that kept us strong and doing this. And since the dismissal of just a week ago now,
right?
The amount of support that's come out, and some of the larger institutions, some of these exchanges that are, 10,000 times the size of we are, to get a call from those founders and say, Schad, great job, way to stand your ground. And that was a big win for the industry. And I just want to say, look, it wasn't by my doing. It was mainly, it was 90% of our legal counsel and the great work that Morrison and Cohen did. But it was also the other 10% goes to our community. And again, when these things happen, to have such a strong community at DebtBox rally behind us, and say, this is not true, and not everybody in our community, because we had a fairly large community, but the core people that knew us and know of us and know our character said, there's no way that these guys did this. The things that they're being accused of cannot be true. And they got behind us and they stood behind us. But without all those pieces falling in place just perfectly, we would have folded. We would have been railroaded, and we would have gone away, and we would have been, a footnote in history. And again, this was only because of the things that we knew. And again, we were willing to go the distance to set the record straight. And thank God we had Judge Shelby, who is, just a very professional judge, who just, realized that what he was told was not the truth. And then I would assume he was not a happy bunny about that and wanted to start to set the record straight. So again, this could have gone a number of different ways. The way that it ended up is only by the grace of God, Tony. And in the end, this was mainly done, much like Coinbase's campaign, from the stance that this is not right. This is not the way it should be done. We were trying to be transparent. We were trying to do everything right. And then you come back and you attack us like this. This is not the American, democracy and innovation, country that I know and love. But unfortunately, it was a very unfortunate circumstance. And so I'm very thankful and I'm humbled to have come through this and still have all my arms and legs. And again, be able to take this what we believe to be a very innovative and valuable platform forward into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate you guys being brave. That's the word I thought of, fighting against this, like you said, story institution, and they have unlimited resources. So it's David versus Goliath, right?
Very much.
Yeah. And, you mentioned Judge Shelby, and some of the comments that I think the judge had made, if I'm going to paraphrase, said that, look, it didn't seem like the SEC lawyers were two rogue actors. It seemed like this was an institutional thing. It came from the top. If I remember that correct, did you get that feeling as well, that this was like the SEC just, we'll do what we want, we're the bullies, and it kind of like going back to Gensler, just attacking everything, right? Throwing the cast net out. It doesn't matter if you're a good or bad actor. We're going after everybody. We're going to break knees. What doesn't matter? We're going to shake down companies. Did you get that feeling this was an SEC thing versus, two random lawyers?
So it certainly was bigger than two. Okay. But I will say this, and I'm going to reiterate this. The SEC is a storied institution, does a lot of really great work. Clearly, they had some bad apples in the basket, and those bad apples needed to be plucked. I think we recently just saw the announcement that they've shut down that regional office indefinitely.
Yeah.
And they've now moved everything to Denver, which is probably, in their opinion, a more apt office or regional to be able to conduct their business properly. I think that to ask the direct question, I'll give a direct answer always. And the question is, I believe it started out with a few bad apples that made some poor judgments and mistakes, and then more people tried to come in and cover those up to not damage their reputation, which only compounded the problem before, right? So again, just in common sense, if you do something wrong, take responsibility for it. I messed up. I made a mistake. Let me fix it. That was not what happened here. What happened here was they made some mistakes, and then they doubled down, and then they tripled down and said, we didn't make any mistakes. And from that aspect of it, that is where the government overreach and that type of the spirit of the attitude that we're the SEC. We don't make mistakes like this. These guys are the bad guys. We're the good guys. So you should believe us and nothing more. But the problem is that when you tell one lie and then you tell a second lie and then tell a third lie, you can't remember what the first lie was, or you can't remember, well, I didn't really say that. Yeah, you did. It's all on the transcript here, so and if they're going to be diligent enough to go through it line by line multiple times and keep pointing out the inconsistencies, they just keep racking up and racking up and racking up, and then eventually it's out of their hands. It's just too big now to ignore. And that's really, in my opinion, what happened here, Tony. I think that some early mistakes were made in this case. If they would have conducted a fair and full investigation before they brought these allegations, they would have seen that we were not operating fraudulent businesses, that these businesses were actually real operating companies that were building these resources to support the digital side of what was being proposed. And again, whether our software contract was a security or not, I still stand my ground and say we disagree. It was not. It did not meet the Howey test, but whatever. It is what it is now. And again, in trying to learn from this and say, okay, maybe Denton's got it wrong as well. And again, it is what it is. But we've now adjusted to what we know will be the more accepted, instrument or token, if you will, to take our business forward, which is an NFT, and then reconstruct. And we were, by the way, already before the August 2nd, nuclear bomb that went off on our front porches and in Twitter, that they were so excited to get out and say, we got another one. See, we're doing our job. We got another one. Look at these guys. We're going to take them down. And, unfortunately, I'm Irish, so I don't back away from a street fight, but if you start it, I'll finish it. But at the end of the day, this was not about me or a small group of people. This is about a community coming together and standing their ground against the Goliath, and then having a third party, Judge Shelby, look at the facts and then say, look, this was not handled properly. This was not right. Maybe there's some mistakes made on their side. Maybe there were certainly mistakes made on your side. So I'm going to dismiss this case, and you guys, you need to pay their legal bills, because had this been done the proper way, they would not have accepted this pain. And there's no way to get that $500 million in market capitalization back for all those people that are out there that believed in our platform and partook in our products. And every day that goes by, I feel sad for those people, because I know that what we were trying to do was to create access to these opportunities so that people could have, an extra loaf of bread on the table, or some passive income over here to do this or do that. And again, that was our only motivation. But in the end, it'll all come out in the wash. It will eventually all come to the surface. And luckily, in the sequence of events that has happened, we find ourselves where we're at. And we just pray that we'll get better and we'll do it better. But our message is, we're now speaking up because we can technically. We were under advice of counsel for 9 months to not say anything to anybody about anything, and that was extremely difficult as well, because when you're being accused of something that you're not, and you're an honest, hardworking person like I am, and a lot of the people that are in our institution are. This is a very traumatic and difficult thing to bear for 9 months, and to come through this was like, unprecedented and insurmountable. But, again, we felt, I think, much like Coinbase felt, and there's other groups out there, that I won't speak for, but feel like if somebody doesn't stand up for this, it's only going to get worse. And I would like to think that because of our little DebtBox case, showing that David could prevail over Goliath for the right reasons, and some of these other larger, Web3 companies that are going through something similar or close, is that if we can band together as a community and as an industry, and we can push back against government overreach, and just say, look, nobody's running away from anything. We're just asking you to give us the rules. It's like, when I was a kid and I go out on the playground and I see my friends, I'd say, "What are we doing today?" And they'd say, "We're playing this game." And the first question out of my mouth was, "Okay, what are the rules?"
Yeah.
Right? Like, how do I play this game, Foursquare or dodgeball or baseball or cricket or soccer? Or how do you play? And again, if you break it down to its lowest, common denominator, that's the first inkling out of somebody's mouth is just tell me how to play the game I want to play. And that's not what they were doing, and that's unfortunate. But hopefully we're on the track to get that there done now, and hopefully our little case will compound some more of the industry. And I think if you just look at the timing, there was a lot of ambiguity over this, ETH spot ETF, and then all of a sudden, these big announcements start coming out about us, and there's other momentum on some of the other cases, and then the commission capitulates and says, okay, it's not a security, and we're going to allow it to go forward. So, amen. Progress, I guess, is being made.
Yeah, absolutely. And I often speak to folks in DC and who are doing advocacy and educating members of Congress about crypto. And your case was certainly a big topic because of the unlawful activities that the SEC took. And, it absolutely tarnishes their reputation. And it's a big, given that crypto has been a big topic and Genser's being called out about other things. So you guys, your case certainly carries a lot of momentum. And I think members of Congress are using that in addition to other things to try to push bills through, try to hold the SEC accountable as well.
I also want to say to DJ Vance, who's the junior senator from Ohio, who's a younger senator who understands this industry, and actually his office was the lead that penned a letter to Gensler on our behalf. Cynthia Loomis from Wyoming was also on that letter with three other senators, all Republicans, but nonetheless expressing their concern at this malfeasance, and that this is not right. And again, like to your point, Tony, I think that the sentiment has changed, and everybody's kind of waking up to the fact that hey, we can't allow this to happen again. And if DebtBox was the cause of that, then so be it. Let's never do this again. I don't ever want to do this again. But if we had to be the ones to take it, we weren't gonna just fold and walk away. And we needed to stand our ground because we knew we had the truth on our side. And again, hopefully this will better America. This will better the industry. And we have a second chance. We at least look at this as a second chance to rebuild what we lost in this, because there's no getting that market capitalization back. And again, the only thing that we can do as responsible administrators for what we created was to, now get our head down and go back to work. And not that we were sitting on our laurels this entire time. This forced 9-month hiatus put us into a position where, I got, a couple more full-time jobs, which was, trying to play legal assistant, during the evenings, while during the day I was doing my day job, which is, developing these physical projects that support our currency projects. And, we made a lot of progress. We just recently, made some big announcements to our community of some of the progress that we've made during this time. So we weren't curled up in the fetal position with, our fingers crossed, hoping this was going to go right. We fought, we contributed where we could contribute. We recruited and luckily got the right people that could champion this for us. Morrison and Cohen. And then as this went the way it went, people like, Senator DJ Vance and, Cynthia Loomis, and those people started to poke their head up and say, here's another example of this government overreach and this, regulation by enforcement. And it's just not right. It's not the American way, and it's not the way it should go. And so hopefully we're turning the corner on that.
Question for you. Are there any other legal cases that you can bring against the SEC or the government or whatever it may be, based on what they did to you guys? Obviously, they're going to pay your attorney fees, but is there any other legal repercussions for them?
Well, listen, the unfortunate part about this is that the one thing that Judge Shelby did was he dismissed this case without prejudice. So the SEC does have the ability to come back and file a new case under new circumstances, under new allegations, whatever that may be. So this isn't necessarily, done and done. We have no interest in aggressing against the commission. Again, I think I've made it, very clear in this podcast that, I respect the institution, and I think they had some bad apples that they've plucked, and I still see them doing things like closing this regional office that shows they're committed to correcting the wrongs that occurred in this case, so that it never happens again. Because this isn't about one commissioner. This isn't about a couple rogue lawyers. This isn't about a region then trying to double and triple down on sweeping their mistakes under the rug, as egregious as they were. The SEC clearly demonstrated, at least to me from being on the inside, that they're committed to cleaning this thing up with nationwide retraining for all their investigators and prosecutors. And the things that they've done, the dismissal of those bad actors in their theater, and then now the closing of this regional office and moving things to what I believe they believe is a better trusted Denver office, which I'm sure there's a lot of really good folks over there. So look, there are the unfortunate part about our system in the United States is anybody can sue anybody for anything. Right. And we're a very litigious society, which is unfortunate. It's positive in some senses and it's negative in others. So, but we have no interest in fighting the SEC. We think that, look, for the most part, there are a lot of really good folks out there. We just happen to be caught up in a bad situation that I think everybody involved, and I pray that this is the case, that everybody just wants to see this thing reach some sort of positive conclusion. And if they had to go through this and we had to go through this, well, then let's learn from everybody's mistakes. And again, nobody's perfect, but at the end of the day, an immense amount of damage was levied on us and our community. And at this point, I think we, from a moral standpoint, we did what we needed to do, and we've come through it on the other end. And now we just want to go back to work and do it properly. And again, that's why we're here in the UAE, because their regulations and their regime is very clear. These are the rules, guys. If you want to play this game, you follow these rules, and we'll help you thrive. And that's what we're doing. And so hopefully that's the case.
Just curious, did anybody from the SEC contact you guys after this? Was there any apologies or anything like that?
No. Not personally, they have not, but I'm not sure exactly. I can't be quoted on this. I can't remember his name, but one of the larger division heads are right underneath Gensler. He did apologize about the situation, not directly to us, but he apologized for the malfeasance and the conduct that was taking place, because they have to own that, and they're owning it. But again, nobody likes to lose. You hear about all the wins and you hear very few about the losses, but this loss happens to be a win for our industry and our community and the overall movement of what we're doing here in the Web3 space. So again, sometimes, coming through adversity will deliver positivity. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to now take the high road, be positive, and turn this into something that we can all benefit from, and not take shots at them. Obviously nothing's perfect, but again, like, they're making the efforts. But no, we weren't offered a direct apology.
Not gonna hold our breath for a Christmas card.
I don't want to be on the naughty list. I just want to be on the nice list. I don't even need a present at this point.
So obviously this thing has been resolved, right? And thank goodness, I'm sure you guys are breathing a sigh of relief. Your legal fees are being covered. So what's next for DebtBox? Can you now, like, focus on growing again, and not having this thing on your back?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was a major hindrance, as I'm sure you can imagine, when even getting this very aggressive receiver, Holland and Knight, out of our lives was a huge blessing, because they were more aggressive than even the SEC. And again, I don't know what was going on over there with that firm, but there was some serious mistakes made on their side as well. And again, we finally, when we were able to get our assets back, from them, which was an effort unto itself, allowed us to go back to work, in a limited capacity. But then having an ongoing litigation with a federal institution, somewhat, muzzles your ability to say anything or do anything or promote yourself, and then again, it's like, well, are we adding more risk to what we're already, accused of doing? And so there were so many things that we had to navigate. But yes, now that the Judge Shelby's final ruling has come down, we're free to, tell our side of the story. We want to do that fairly. And we just want the facts out there, so that this just happens to anybody else or again. And yeah, and like I said earlier in this podcast, Tony, we weren't huddled in the corner, with our fingers crossed, hoping this just went away. I mean, we worked hard with, to support our lawyers the best we could to help us, have a positive outcome to this thing. But we were very busy. We got back to work as quickly as we could with the resources that we could, and no new resources coming in for 9 months. So it's been a very difficult time, and a lot of the core people have tightened their belt and suffered. Our families. I mean, we would have to dedicate an entire podcast to hearing some of the horror stories that people have gone through. People have lost their homes. People have been damaged to the point of there's no fixing it. Reputations have been dragged through the mud. It's funny because and one of the things I have to say is that our partners here in the UAE have been absolute rock stars as well. I mean, when this came down, lesser people that we work with would have run the other direction. And I don't know how many times I had to do this. Certainly over 50, maybe 100, did I have to sit in front of somebody with very glaring eyes and say, what is going on? And I'm like, well, look, what I can tell you is I did nothing wrong, and we are going to come out of this thing on the other side of this. I don't know how, and I don't know when, but I know I have the truth on my side. And if I have the truth on my side, I have nothing to fear. So again, I can't fault you for wanting to walk out the door. And if you want to leave our community and you want to, sell everything, that's your prerogative. It's a free market still, thank God. And our partners did the exact opposite. They said, look, we know you. We're gonna get your back, and we're gonna help you. And I thank them every day for that. Blessings of the Lord have come, and here we are. But even in this tribulations that we've gone through, it's fused the inner core to a point where going through a traumatic experience together will build trust. And there's nothing like it, because trust is everything. And if you have trust, you can accomplish anything. And again, it's been very difficult to keep the community's trust, because a lot of people, for and against, have been, either at our back or at our face. And again, it's that's just human nature. It's going to happen. So a lot of adversity was overcome, but we decided to take this unfortunate situation and turn it into a growth opportunity. And so we had to really take inventory and decide, what do we want to do and how do we want to handle this? And I'll tell you, the first thing that always is the number one concern is our community, because the community is what makes this go, right? we can have the best idea in the world and put it out there, but if nobody picks it up, it's not valuable. If in fact the community was behind us, as well as these new partners and these new opportunities that are coming our way, which frankly probably wouldn't be the size or have the potential that they would had we not gone through this and had we not been able to persevere over this adversity. And so we sit at the precipice now of something very great. Okay. And we have a very unique opportunity and responsibility to take this unfortunate situation and lateral it up to the next level, take this into the next dimension. And again, that was with a lot of belt tightening and a lot of, decision making to say, we need to strengthen ourselves. And I've talked to a lot of people in our industry that are very powerful people. And I've said the same thing. Alex has been with me for, if not all of these meetings, but the vast majority of these meetings. And I've said to them, listen, we were attacked. And if we can be attacked, so can you. And if we don't get together on this thing and create a coalition of the willing and push forward to be able to say, we welcome regulation, we want guardrails, we want to know how we operate. This is a multi-trillion-dollar industry and it's only growing overnight. Look at BlackRock just surpassed Michael Saylor as the largest Bitcoin holder in the world. And they've been talking about real-world assets and tokenizing real-world assets for years. We've been doing it for 2.5 years. And we're going into our 3rd year and it's only going to accelerate. So again, Tony, there's a lot of really good things. And I encourage everyone to check out the DebtBox and see what's coming down the pipe. And I think they'll be pleasantly surprised. And I think that, like I said earlier, my job and our job here as the administrators of this, our responsibility and our stewardship is the most important thing to us. We take that very seriously. And again, I will breathe the final sigh of relief when we make back that $500 million in market capitalization for the people that believed in us, because unfortunately, I didn't cause this to happen. But as I said earlier, I will finish it. And I will finish it all the way to the point to where whatever you took off our table, we will put it back. And those people are the deserving few that should be the recipients of that value. And we will do that. That was my commitment to them then, and it's still my commitment now. And it's not about me. I just happen to be the face at the moment. And there are many others involved. And again, a very large community of people. So this is not about one person or a small group of people. This is about a movement that we're creating. And the movement just got, hypercharged because of the situation that we went through. Right, wrong, or indifferent. It's very painful. If asked to do it again, I would say, I don't think I can. I'm sorry. But I didn't have a choice. My utter freedom was at risk. My family, if this had gone another way, I could be sitting in a federal prison right now. But I'm not.
Tony, Schad, as well, just to make my point as, not being one of the founders, but being with DebtBox for a while. Looking at this industry, there's 2 things for me that are really important about DebtBox and tokenizing real world assets. We didn't launch a white paper and go on, what, for me, if the SEC are going to come down on something, being in Malta in 2018, 17, when they tried to put this, wrap around an ICO, which, was an interesting time for the space. There was no ICO. We were selling a product. At no point did we go out and raise an ICO or an investment contract. We sold a product. And in answer to what you were saying, when you have a real business, I would, for a long time before I joined DebtBox, I'd have people say, oh, we're on the blockchain, Alex. And being someone relatively well known in the space for a while, I'd be like, okay, where's your business plan? Oh, we don't have one. I'm like, okay. I think with DebtBox, what people need to realize is there's a real projects, real business that goes on, that props up what we're doing. It's a real world asset. And, whether an ICO becomes an ITO or an IPO or whatever else we get to in the future, there's always going to be a real business that backs up what you have. And, not at one point have we stopped developing the business that props up our digital platform. And I think people should give merit to that. It's not a white paper where we're selling what I would call a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's a real business, and it's not so easy to come by in this space to have a business that essentially just created a digital side of a physical activity that we've been doing. So a lot of exciting stuff.
I think to Alex's point, that really is a very well summed up kind of synopsis of what we do, Tony. And again, going back to the very starting point of this podcast, you're asking me about my first interaction with Bitcoin, and I wasn't as excited about the Bitcoin as I was about the underlying blockchain technology. As a licensed, financial professional for a long time, and I've been licensed to give advice over the years. I worked for 3 hedge funds that had multiple billions of dollars under management. I'm a fairly conservative, responsible guy, especially when we're playing with other people's money. You got to be careful and you got to know what you're doing. And again, I don't like the volatility of the digital currencies out there. They're too volatile. But the one problem I did see, and it wasn't rocket science to me, was I said, man, if you could take this innovation and this technology and you could put an underlying real business to it, like essentially tokenizing real utility, not like smoke and mirror utility, but real utility, then you've really got something. It's like an NFT, right? Like, I don't understand this whole, and again, I'm just me, but CryptoPunk selling for $4 million. It's a 24 pixel picture on a piece of, it's not even on a piece of paper, it's just digital. I was like, what is this? Why is this happening? And again, and I think even through some of our strategic partnerships in different parts of the world, like Hong Kong, there are other individuals out there that see the value of what we kind of coined dynamic NFTs, which are things that actually have legitimate utility, that actually produce something, right? It's not just an image on a piece of paper. And listen, Andy Warhol, painted a Campbell soup can, and I don't know, you need 20 million or 50 million to get one of those. But CryptoPunk, to me, I didn't get it. And I think Alex is right there with me on this. It's like, and I know Sam Lee and some of our other partners that we work really well together with iShang.com, and his NFT marketplace. It's like he won't let anything on that platform unless it's got utility. Like, he won't let somebody just post and again, that's why he's licensed and regulated. And again, that's why we're pushing away from the DeFi, these unregulated marketplaces, these unsecured dApps where people hook their wallets up to them, and then they're exposed to the security protocols of something they don't understand, which I learned from Alex. And then all their virtual assets disappear overnight because they got hacked. Like, if we don't start addressing some of these issues as an industry and a community, these things are going to continue to happen, and they're not good for anybody. It only hurts us all. Sam Bankman-Fried did nobody any favors by doing what he did. And you know what? And he's sitting where he's supposed to be sitting. And a lot of people around him should be sitting right there with him, but we're given grace because they did what they did. But again, this is not acceptable. What's happening to Coinbase is not acceptable. I mean, Brian Armstrong has done this right from the beginning. And to go on a direct listing with NASDAQ was the reason why we launched. My partner and the people that we worked with kept saying, Schad, when do we go? We're going to miss the train. When do we go? And I said, guys, I don't know when we go, but we got to see something in the industry happen. And you know what that event was? It was when Brian Armstrong went direct listing on the NASDAQ. And then 2 weeks later, I looked around and said, wow, the sky didn't fall. I think it's now, guys. I think we go now.
Yeah.
And then we went. And then
talk about coining, phrases, Schad. The irony of it. I like what you've got, like real world assets for me that have been around in the industry as kind of like a buzzword for a while. I kind of like to think of what we're doing as we tokenize real world value
Yeah.
as
We take,
opposed to a real world assets are involved, but what we're actually doing is creating access to a digital version of a revenue stream that happens to be provided by a real world asset, and that's never going to go away.
so
We're
Tony,
going to stop
and
needing
I'll give you a real world example of this. In the mining industry, there's something called a streaming agreement, which is it's not streaming like you're streaming Netflix. It's a streaming agreement because there's operators out there that are trying to expand their business and they need access to capital. And as opposed to going public on an exchange, they can sign what's called a forward contract. Okay. And that forward contract is a streamer. So somebody's signing up ahead of time saying, if you're going to be able to produce this amount of the commodity today, I would like to purchase it from you today at this price. Now, if the price goes up, I benefit. If the price goes down, I don't benefit as much. But access is the key here. There's time value of money and there's access. And these are fundamental things that go behind our token economics in all of the architecture and all of the design. And one of the things is that if I'm a mine operator and I want to open up I want to open up 5 more wells, or I want to go do some more exploration, or I want to open up a new piece of the concession to mine more gold or silver or platinum or lithium or, bauxite for aluminum, all these things, and I need access to capital, I can go to an off taker and I can say, listen, advance me some of the money now so I can do this, and then I'll stream back to you a royalty. And so at its core is what we do. And so what Alex is saying is, as opposed to tokenizing real world assets, we're not actually technically doing that. What we're doing is we're tokenizing the revenue streams that come off of real world assets. And that acts in our architecture as our internal market making process, because in our buy and burn function, those royalties are to go into the secondary market, buy that project token and burn it, so that the supply and demand economics and that supply and demand economic theory is in play, and that's as simply as you can put it. So again, we've got light papers out there, we've got technical papers out there that people can familiarize themselves with, and when they see what we did, it's like we really just tried to break things down to it's base level, but the value that DebtBox has brought and the value in our architecture and what we've been able to achieve is that somebody for as less as a minting fee of $25 can get in the game, right? And I don't know, we don't know of anybody else. And again, we don't know everything about everything, but here we are, and we're 2.5 going on 3 years old, and we've been doing this in not theoretical application, but practical application. We've been doing it, and again, not trying to poke any more 800-pound gorillas, but BlackRock's been talking about this for a decade. I don't see them doing one project yet, but again, trust me, the big guys are never the innovators. They always wait until all the smaller guys make all the mistakes, and then when they're ready, they come in and say, okay, we're just going to buy you, or now we're going to come in because we've seen how you've done it, we've seen how you've navigated all the mistakes, and now things are going well for you. Now we're just going to come in and become your competitor. And listen, that's capitalism at its finest, and we welcome competition and we welcome more people. But what we want to do is we want to welcome more people into our community, and we want them to see that the access that we're trying to create to real world value, and hopefully that will start to democratize and distribute the wealth amongst the people, which is at the core of what we do. And that's what we try to do every day.
And Tony, if I may, just to add on as well, because you asked this, and perhaps from our end, getting that across. And I think what people should realize, either stepping new or in our already established community, the projects that we've launched, NatG, BGLD, all the projects that we've successfully tokenized, created revenue streams from, what we're doing as a business, and there is already plans, they're already out in the open. we're building our own platform, and I, a layer one. And I think what people should see this as on the outside, we've successfully shown, if you like, a proof of concept that we happen to operate ourselves. In the future, look at what we're doing as a platform for any operator anywhere in the world to be able to tokenize that revenue stream and, be able to build liquidity to expand. If you look at that as a platform, essentially we're a launch pad for real world asset commodity operators, and that's where we're going. So I think it's important for people to understand our projects right now are essentially that MVP. They're essentially that proof of concept, and what we've done works. And I don't know too many, let's say, under the RWA flag, have really successfully found a model in where the token, the digital representation has more value than the asset that you're trying to tokenize. And that's where I think DebtBox, from a token structure and a tokenomics, is really leading the way in terms of its innovation.
Let's hit some rapid questions. We'll start with you first, Schad. Rapid fire, favorite food?
Cheeseburgers.
Favorite musician or band?
I'm a big fan of Imagine Dragons right now.
Favorite movie?
That's a tough one. I got a lot of them. True Romance is one of my favorite all-time movies.
Favorite book?
Well, Sun Tzu, The Art of War. I'm a that and the Daily Stoic. I'm a student of the Stoicism, and I'm a student of Sun Tzu.
When you're not working at DebtBox, what are you doing for fun?
I like to spend time with my friends and my family, and I'm an avid long distance runner, so I like to run.
All right, Alex, favorite food?
Avocado.
Favorite musician or band?
Paul Simon.
Favorite movie?
Graceland.
Oh, Graceland, yeah. Favorite movie?
Also tough one. I would say Usual Suspects or Unusual Suspects.
Favorite book?
Very good one. Probably Signs.
And what do you do for fun when you're not working?
Kahlil Gibran. Any book by Kahlil Gibran is my favorite book.
Okay. And then what are you doing for fun outside of work?
Good one. Kickboxing, martial arts, food. I'm a big foodie. Like
Awesome.
food. Innovation, reading tech papers because I'm a geek.
Awesome. Gentlemen, it was great speaking to you both. I'm so happy for, the case being resolved, and I appreciate you putting up the fight. And as I said earlier, being brave, because you're going up against Goliath, and, wish you lots of success, and we'll definitely have to have you guys back on as things develop on your end.
Our pleasure, Tony. We'll be back anytime you'll have us. So thank you so much, and appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony.
Awesome, brother.
You're awesome. Thanks, guys.